your best ideas do not live in a freebie that you're going to find on LinkedIn that somebody locked their team to collect examples from other brands. It's not going to be on competitor research. It's not going to be anywhere else besides your customers and what it can be. And I think this is the main thing. You should speak to your customers and really try to understand what they go through, because this is what's going to have the most impact.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this e-commerce marketing focus podcast. If you're not familiar with Keep Optimizing, well, we do 5-episode focuses on the marketing you need to know about. And at the moment, that is email marketing. And each of our episodes, we release a new one every Wednesday. We interview a different expert to explore the latest advice on making that marketing channel work for you. So yeah, 5 episodes with 5 experts sharing 5 different ways to improve whichever marketing method we are currently focused on. In this episode, we are kicking off our new mini-series on email marketing. And it's great to be getting stuck into such an important channel in the e-commerce space. We're kicking off in style with the brilliant George from Yocto, who is a retention CRM specialist. His agency worked for many brilliant brands you will have seen being talked about on case studies and podcasts and all over the place. He does him and his team do some really brilliant stuff, and he's going to be sharing how they go about building the retention marketing playbook for their clients. And do not expect this to be a after 3 days send X. This is about doing it properly. This is about how you work out what to say in those messages, how you structure it. And George will be sharing how we do that, and also sharing some great examples and even some tools and suggestions on tech you can get to make it easier to do it all. Make sure you listen right to the end of the episode, because at the end, George will be sharing his quickfire insider tips to help you maximize the performance of your email and SMS and retention activity. I'll be sharing my take on it all, and I'll be sharing some more free ways we can help you improve it even more. So make sure you stay tuned right to the end. Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop, or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook. In this episode, I'm chatting with email and SMS expert George Kapernaros. George is the CEO at Yocto, a world-class CRM agency for D2C brands, working to increase profits and sales for brands like Heights, Health, and Fussy. He is also the host of the CEO After Dark podcast and one of the just 40 people who get to be part of the Klaviyo Partner Advisory Council. Hello, George.
Chloe, thank you for having me.
Awesome to have you on the show. I love a bit of email chat, especially when it's with someone who's doing such cool stuff with email as you are. But how did you end up in the world of email and SMS?
I was working in-house at a company called Div, and I actually started as a copywriter. I think this is pretty common in our space. Most people either start as an analyst or a copywriter somehow. And that company grew quite a bit, quite fast, and it grew on the back of acquisition. So I had a lot of opportunity to be involved in, marketing campaigns on social, Google, YouTube, basically everywhere. But what I felt, and I still feel the same, is that the retention piece was lagging behind acquisition. And eventually, I left that company and became a consultant. By the time I left, just for context, I was the marketing director there. So I was essentially, besides the 2 founders, I was the highest ranking executive. I had a small retention team. I was working with the acquisition team, CRO team, market research team, a bunch of different teams, because the company grew quite fast. But I became a consultant and I got lucky, I guess, and I landed a very big project with a company called Kilo Health. They have something like 7 million people on subscription, which is basically like a small country. And I had the opportunity there to work with some really smart people and learn a lot of cool things, which caused Yocto to be born organically because there was quite a bit of demand for my services because I started building a reputation there. And it's been a little over 2.5 years since I launched Yocto, but we're doing quite okay, I would say. As you mentioned, we're part of Klaviyo's advisory council. We're working with some of the top brands in the UK. We mostly focus in CPG, particularly in health and wellness. We're also working with companies in the US, I don't know, like Elo Health, Miracare, and many leaders in the health and wellness space. Better Me is another one that people may have heard of. And what I really feel passionate about at the moment is closing what I call the retention clarity gap, which essentially is taking brands from thinking they know what's working to actually knowing what's working, which I found is a pretty big problem.
It's a huge problem, isn't it? It's like we seem to just go, oh yeah, retention, we'll create a sequence and then we forget about it and we don't actually look at what the opportunity is. So I love the fact you wanted to come on and talk retention. Why is retention so important in 2025? How does the email marketer listening to this who wants to convince their boss to allow them to crack on with the retention project, how do they do that? Why is it so important this year?
I will agree with you that it is very important this year, but I will also say that it has been important basically forever, I think. It's just becoming increasingly more obvious that it's important because everything else is getting harder.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm talking about. The cost to acquire customers is going up, which means the margins are shrinking. Now there's AI, which means there's tons of content flooding consumers with noise. And retention is how you can ultimately fight back, if you will, as a company and make your marketing dollars work harder because you were already paid to acquire that customer. And with proper retention marketing, you can get them to spend again. I do want to share a little bit of data, if you allow me, from our portfolio in this, because I think it's quite instructive and it really speaks to what you just said, that people set and forget journeys without really thinking about it. So from where we stand and based on what we see, approximately 95% of prospects who will purchase from your company do so within 3 days of signing up and giving you their email. And if you extend this window to 30 days, that number goes to 99%, which ultimately means that most of the revenue that you see on platforms like Klaviyo and any other ASP that you might be using is truly coming from your existing customers, not from net new prospects that you convert through CRM. The prospects that you do convert through CRM, even as high as 90% of those that you convert through flows like the checkout abandonment flow or through delivering a coupon on the welcome flow, which ultimately means that all you do is that you just retarget intent. It's not that you necessarily do anything on top of that the acquisition team already did. And what all of this means is that you, as an email marketer who's actually looking to make an impact, first of all, you need to recognize the reality of what the data is telling you is. And then you need to do all you can to, of course, build those fundamental journeys so that you do support the acquisition teams. But your real job is to do things for after the customer's purchase, because that's the lever that you are actually able to influence on your own. And if you really start getting into this rabbit hole, the focus shifts away from, I don't know, I'm going to send 12 campaigns to people that engaged with our emails in the last 90 days to actually creating journeys that are long, multi-month long, and go through the experience that the user is actually going through. So it's a lot about staying relevant after the sale. That's what ultimately matters when you are doing email marketing and CRM marketing as a whole. It's not just about email, it's just a vehicle.
Love those stats. Thank you for sharing that. I think it really shines a light on how critical it is to get this right. So if we're going to go about improving retention, where do we start? What's the first thing we do to improve retention via our email marketing activity?
I'm going to tell you what I think you should not do. first.
Please do.
I think what a lot of companies do when it comes to those things is that they think about it in terms of calendars. Like they say, I have this announcement I want to make. I'm doing these product launch. I've got that sale coming. I've got this and that and la 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 la. And the reality is that this is, in my perspective, again, it's totally wrong. And I know there will be people listening to me right now and they're going to say, no, what are you talking about? But it's true that they've been wrong. The CRM activities that you have should be reflecting the customer's journeys, not the company's calendar. It shouldn't be a broadcast channel. It should be a channel about empathy. So the questions that you should be asking yourself when you want to do this is, what is the customer actually going through? What do they need to hear next? How can we be helpful and not just loud? And probably people listening in are going to be like, this is too theoretical. So I'm going to make it concrete. This is for a real project. It's one of our companies in Silicon Valley that actually targets couples that want to get pregnant. So they have preconception products that help you get pregnant. They have products for when you get pregnant and products for after you give birth. And clearly, this is extremely complex, right? You are talking about something that's emotionally charged, something that's deeply personal. And the LTV potential is tremendous because a client can stay with you from the moment they start thinking about pregnancy all the way to after they give birth. But you also need to be very careful because if you're just broadcasting things, you might be promoting something for pregnancy to somebody that's unable to get pregnant, which ultimately means that they may be very pissed off at you, right? So what you have to do as a marketer there is to truly understand what those people go through. You have to go to the very beginning of this journey that they have, which is that they go through blood tests and ultrasounds and do multiple screening visits. They even inject hormones maybe, and they do IVF and spend 30K on that before they actually arrive at your product. So it's a very delicate situation, which you can only understand through having a lot of empathy. And once you have this empathy, you need to start thinking about how can I maintain awareness of what is happening in that customer's life? How can I actually be collecting data on where they are in their journey without feeling intrusive or annoying, which might mean that I need to develop an app about this so that they can be, for example, updating their consumption of the supplements that you might be promoting to them. So it's much more complex, is what I'm saying. It's much more complex and delicate than just setting up your welcome flow and your checkout abandonment flow and your win back flow that triggers 90 days after the purchase without placing a second order.
I love that example you've given because I think we all get that empathy is important, but it's so easy to not really get to grips with it. And I think sometimes those examples of such emotive products or products that exist in such an emotive need area really helps you understand how empathy can play out in this and how empathy then goes across in it. If we're talking, kind of like a normal, for want of a better term, product, something which has less huge emotional impact around it, how do you go about working out where the key empathy points are and how those parts of the journey come together? Is it sitting down with the team and identifying it in the first instance? Is it customer surveys? Is it common sense?
I think it's a combination of all of those three things that you mentioned. Usually there's quite a bit of, I call it tribal knowledge within companies. Founders especially, they have usually a very deep understanding of who the audience is and how the products work. So there's a big, big value add in taking the founder and the founding team as a whole and sitting down with them and like really having a conversation about mapping the stages of the user journey. Surveys can help, and they do help, but I find that the answers, though they are helpful, are a little bit surface level. So usually what you want to do is have a follow-up conversation, like an actual conversation with the customer. And when you do this, you want to be very targeting who you speak to. You want to speak potentially to the customers that have been with you for a long time and are still actively consuming the products, or those that perhaps were there in a long time but somehow stopped purchasing. So you want to basically try and like see what makes those people different than everybody else, what makes them tick, what made them go away. And once you have this information, what you want to do is you want to go to the point where you're going to have the most impact, which for most companies is going to be converting one-time customers to two-type customers. That's usually the area where you can have the greatest impact, simply because there's more volume there. And what you need to consider in that case is those are people that give you money, right? So they did like the product enough. Why did they not buy again? What is stopping them from trusting you long term? And what I think a lot of companies do amazing, particularly on the ads, is that they speak about the benefits of the products. They're going to be like, bullet point 1, 2, 3, this is why this is great. But what they also need to do after somebody buys is explain why is this actually different than everything else they may have tried before. And what is the reason also why those other things that they tried before did not work. And again, I'm going to give another example, which that also might be a little bit niche, but that's the type of companies we work with. If you think about weight loss or weight management, particularly in the US, there's GLP-1 drugs are very popular. And you need to, if you're in weight management as a company, you're selling, I don't know, fat burners or diet plans or whatever it may be, you need to be having this in mind. Why would your product be better than GLP-1? No, not better, but perhaps healthier with fewer side effects potentially. So you need to always, again, have the context of what is happening in their life besides just your product, and speak not only about the benefits of your product, but how the product itself relates to everything else that's happening around the product that you're promoting.
So for those people who've bought once and haven't bought again, it's kind of getting to grips with why they might not have yet used the product, why they might not have yet felt the benefits of the product. So kind of continuing very similar messages to the initial sales messages through that part of their customer journey. Almost basically just continuing the sales process rather than going, you bought it, our job is done, all is wonderful.
Exactly. And you should also, of course, give them a sense of when they should be expecting results. You should give them a sense of what happens if they don't like it. You should basically reassure them that it will work. And you should provide proof that it will work in addition to what we said. But basically, yeah, I think persuasion and sales are kind of like dirty words. And everybody says you should educate, which is a fine word. It's a clean word. But ultimately, what's the purpose of education if not to make the consumer purchase again? So in my mind, those two are very interconnected.
Oh, I feel like we could probably talk for about 3 hours on the problems of certain words in our industry. So I'm going to avoid that rabbit hole though for this. So the one-time purchases we're aiming to turn into longer-term customers. We continue the education, the sales, all that process, all that empathetic process to help them embrace the product and use the product and therefore want to buy the product again. Do we continue in that same theme as we go beyond that point in the customer journey? Is it still about the sales messages, the benefits, helping them realize it? Or does it change to something else?
The questions that people ask themselves change, but the process does not, I believe. I think you should still be trying to understand what is the user thinking and how can I address what they're thinking in a way that's positive for my brand. So if you think about it from a stages perspective, and I'm going to use a subscription context because I think that's perhaps more interesting. You have your one-time purchase customers, those that like purchase without subscribing. And that's a very interesting cohort because usually you can save money through subscribing. So why would they choose not to save money? It's a very interesting scenario. You have those that do subscribe, the first subscription purchase, you have the first renewal, and then you can have the second or third renewal, after which you would probably categorize somebody as loyal. Then you have those that eventually cancel. You have your winbacks, which should not be done in a way that most people do them, which is 90 days after the first order. You should actually try and find what is the median between orders for that particular product, and then ultimately communicate before that date so that you are top of mind and only provide discounts after that date passes. In other words, when the user deviates from the expected behavior, and again, that's totally not what people do, And there's also a last stage, which I call resurrection. And this one is interesting because you can unlock it mostly through campaigns, not automations. Resurrection is when you find peak moments where the user's motivation could be high. For example, talking about weight management again, after a New Year's resolution, right? Like people are naturally more motivated to lose weight. And that could be a period where you are targeting more broadly your users, those that have not been active in a long time, simply because their natural motivation is up. Black Friday would be another. And each of those has different sets of questions. Like, for example, people that decide to purchase without subscribing. That's a very interesting situation because they're choosing not to save money, which ultimately means that they are not sure if it's going to work, that they don't know if they're going to like it, they don't know if it's going to fit their routine, they don't know if it's ultimately going to work, and they just want to test it out. So those people, you really need to provide proof. You really need to give them a clear sense that this is how this will work, this is why it will work, this is what you should expect. It's very, very important. And if we were to think about those that are replenishing or staying subscribed over time, there's always this question that everybody has. Everybody has. As you have a subscription, there's pain every time you're charged money. And you're always asking yourself, is this really doing anything? Do I really need this? And you need to be essentially creating a positive experience over time to not allow this pain to lead them to cancel the subscription. So it's fairly complicated, I would say.
It is, and it makes you make a great case for why this isn't a slap up one campaign and we're all sorted. It's so much more multi-layered, both in terms of understanding the point at which that customer's at, and then the right empathetic messages to be giving them. And I thought what you said about the win back campaign is so obvious once you've said it. But like you say, most people go, "Oh, right, most people cancel at this point, so we'll slap them a discount on." But actually, why wouldn't you be reminding them of the benefits in the weeks before they would normally cancel to make sure they don't cancel? It's so obvious, but yet, like as you say, so few businesses are doing it. We've covered quite a lot there. Is there anything that we've missed, George, that the audience need to know about as they're building their own retention marketing playbooks?
I think the main takeaway people should have from this conversation is that your best ideas do not live in a freebie that you're going to find on LinkedIn, that somebody locked their team to collect examples from other brands. It's not going to be on competitor research. It's not going to be anywhere else besides your customers and what it tells you. And I think this is the main thing. You should speak to your customers and really try to understand what they go through, because this is what's going to have the most impact.
I love that advice. Any tools you'd recommend for us to use as we're pulling all of this together, in delivering it or in doing the research?
I mean, there's quite a few tools. I'll mention two that I really like. One is Zamo. It's a technology that allows emails to be interactive. So you can have elements that you click within the email, and then those elements can change. So you can have a quiz right from within the email, for example. But more importantly, especially for subscription companies, you can complete subscription-related actions from within the email. In other words, you can get people to spend money without having to go through a checkout process, which is really powerful, and we see it working extremely well. Another tool that I would like to recommend is PaperRun, which is a direct mail platform. We often think about email and SMS, and those are great channels, they're fine channels. But if you look at the numbers, again, there's a pretty sizable portion of your audience that will never open an email. That might be starting your checkouts, though. And those are people that you are not actually targeting at the moment through your regular retention channels, CRM channels, which is why it makes so much sense to send them a physical postcard, which is something that they can't really ignore. Those would be two. And then actually, I'm going to add a few more because more are coming to my mind. From a subscription standpoint, I want to give a shout out to Loop, the team at Loop Subscriptions. They're great. And Skill. Those are two fantastic companies that I think give an incredible experience to the clients they work with. And of course, I can't help but also say that Klaviyo is great. It's a fantastic company. They've been relentless about improving the product. I do think they have the best product on the market for Shopify brands. There's a reason why my company, even though we're technology agnostic and we work with Iterable, we work with like many other platforms, we choose to focus on Klaviyo. And yeah, I think that's enough shout-outs.
Awesome. There you go, everybody. A properly impressive list of tech for you to go and explore. Thank you so much for that, George. And it's been brilliant chatting to you about all of this and how we could go about building proper retention marketing playbook activity. Listeners, make sure you stay tuned to the end so you don't miss out on George's insider tips on email marketing and my suggestions for more free resources to help you improve things even further in your businesses. Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook. Okay, George. So far, we've gone deep into building your retention marketing playbook. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole of email and SMS. So for the following questions, your answer can be anything to do with that, which of course does include all the things we've already been talking about. So, George, are you ready for the insider tips?
Let's go.
Okay, let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
What you need to know is exactly what I said, that you should focus on your customers and not on what other companies do, not on what people say on social media, not what I say on this podcast even. You should just speak to your customers and your internal team because those are going to be the sources of your best ideas. The best ideas are not templates, they are not hacks, they're not tips and tricks. They're based out of the empathy that you have for your own audience.
I love that advice. So easy to get obsessed with our own opinions and forget about those of our customers. So loving that you're doubling down on that. Now, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
Everybody says that you should always be testing things, and there's truth in that, but there's also truth in math. And the reality is that many of the tests we do are not statistically significant because we don't take the time to measure what sample size and how many conversions we would need until they were statistically significant. And I do want to say this just to contextualize what I mean. To detect a 20% uplift, you would need around 350 sales to be precise per variant, if you were having 10% conversion rate on 1,000 email clicks per week, which is a lot of email clicks, and it is a lot in terms of conversion as well, which means that you need a massive number of sales. Anything lower than that, and the data is kind of random. You're kind of guessing. And what this means ultimately is that you should, of course, be testing, but you should be testing in a way that leads to learning. If you are just testing to test, then you're not really learning that much, are you? So that's my advice. Test, but test to learn. Don't test to test.
It is mad how little we talk about statistical significance given how much we talk about A/B testing. I'm so glad you mentioned it because so many people are just doing tests on too small a data set and it's just a waste of time. So super top advice there. If someone listening wants to learn more, is there one cheap or free even resource that you would recommend?
I do have an internal resource that actually covers what we went through about the questions people ask themselves in a subscription journey. And it covers every stage that they go through, from the first purchase all the way to the end. So if somebody wants it, just ping me on LinkedIn and mention this episode, and I'll happily share it with you. And we have a lot of resources that I can happily say about experimentation. Also, I just mentioned statistical significance. We have a lot of internal tools that we use. So if CRO in the context of CRM is interesting, or if subscriptions are interesting to ask, and I'm happy to share.
Excellent. Everyone go and connect with George on LinkedIn and ask him for those goodies. Finally, George, it's crystal ball time. What's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we should be getting ready for?
I think it is already happening actually, but it's going to accelerate. We have what they call service market fit collapse, which means that what used to be enough is no longer enough. So exactly what we said on this episode, the welcome flow, cart abandonment, thank you flow type of package that is coupled with 8 emails per month and goes to those that engaged in the last 90 days, it's no longer cutting it. Brands demand more. And if you are an email marketer, you need to get better. It's as simple as that. You need to be more savvy when it comes to the math of things. You need to be more savvy when it comes to the customer journey side of things and the life cycle side of things. You are no longer just sending emails or sending texts. You are designing systems that allow a company to acquire more sales from the same audience. And that's complex. And you need to probably upskill yourself.
Love that. Thank you very much. Okay, George, you have been an awesome guest. I know many of the audience want to know how to get in contact with you. So, and what more about what you guys do at Yocto. So could you please let us know a little bit more about that and how they can get in contact?
The easiest way to speak to me is on LinkedIn. I'm extremely active on the platform and I post things regularly. But if you want to have an actual conversation with me, you can just go to keepop.com/Yocto. It's going to redirect you to my calendar link. And if you are a brand, I'm very happy to help you build your own retention playbook in that call. I'm going to ask you a few questions about the company, of course, just so they have context. And then together we're going to basically find what would work for you.
Wow, that's awesome. Everybody, keepopt.com/Yocto if you want George's actual help, one-on-one, to help you work out what your playbook should be. Did I cut you off there, George? I felt like you were about to say something else, but I waded in anyway. So was there anything else you wanted to add?
I did want to add that we are hiring also, and we're hiring for multiple positions. We're around 20 people strong. And I say around because we have a lot of positions. So I don't truly know how many people we are at the moment, but it's around 20. We're hiring for email marketers, we're hiring for designers, copywriters, strategists, as we call them, which is senior email marketers. And if you are good and you can back that up, please do message me about this as well, because I'm very open to connecting.
Very cool. Well, hopefully one of your next new employees is listening to this show. Okay, George, thank you again so much for being on the show. It's always a real pleasure to get to talk email with you. And it's been great having you on the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, everyone, great to hear from George there, to hear from an email marketer who's doing such amazing things with such big brands. And I love how he explains something which is quite complex and quite hard to do, but makes it more relatable for all of you. So really great to have George on talking about kind of the ins and outs of how we structure that retention marketing and all those different campaigns. So we're getting the right empathetic messages across to our customers so we can therefore get them to take action at the right times and get them ready to take action. Like he was saying with that win back campaign, don't send them a discount past the point of no return. Remind them of the greatness of your product and the reasons they wanted it in the first place as you're getting to that point. You can get the links to the things we discussed, the full transcript of the episode, important notes and more at keepoptimizing.com. Don't forget, if you want to have that one-on-one chat with George about how you can structure your playbook for retention, head to keepopt.com/Yocto. And you can also get our special direct episode short link, keepopt.com/the number of this episode. If you put that in the URL bar, you will go straight to the correct page on the website for all the info about this one. When you get to the website, please do also add yourself to our email list so you don't miss out on any of the other things we share to help you improve your business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimizing podcast. This is the first episode of our new series all about email and SMS. If you want to continue learning about that right now, there are two ways you can do it. Firstly, you can scroll back up your feed to the last time you find emails that begin with episodes even that begin with email, or even just go back a short while to our recent retention series that you'll find in our list of episodes. You can also find all our email content via the short link keepopt.com/email. That will take you to the page on the website with all the email content. And if you want to dive deeper into retention, head to keepopt.com/retention, where you will find our recent episodes about customer retention in particular. Have a great week and make sure you listen to the next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimizing.com. That's with an S, not a Z.
Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook.